Good morning, everyone. Welcome to ERPA's webinar on transitioning Oracle BI applications to the Oracle Cloud. We're going to keep everybody on mute this morning until we get to the end of the presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions. Periodically throughout the presentation, you may receive a poll question. If you have a chance, please respond to the poll question, and that's going to give us some understanding of you guys and the type of things that are interesting to you and some of your motivations for attending today, and it would be greatly appreciated. My name is Peter Katrubis. I'm Senior Vice President of Operations. I've got 15 plus years of data warehousing experience, closer to 16 now. It always seems to creep up on me. I'm the executive over data warehousing, BI, big data, and serve as the program director for the organization, and I'm an Oracle certified professional. Jake Anwani is joining me in support, and he's a senior Oracle BI solution architect and also serves as the technical BI practice director, and him and I work hand in hand for all of our BI initiatives and projects. He's an Oracle certified BI implementation specialist and also certified with Oracle Data Integrator, which is one of the key components of Oracle BI applications, or at least the newer product set with 11.11.10.2. Jay's been working with Siebel with Oracle Business Intelligence before it was Oracle Business Intelligence, back with Siebel Analytics 7.9.6, before it became OBIEE, and then it's gone through various iterations, and then with the creation of Oracle Business Intelligence applications. The agenda for today's call is we're going to do a little overview of ERPA. That's just to qualify us and our background and experience with the topic and the subjects. Then we're going to look at the business considerations for lift and shift to the cloud to give you guys an understanding of what you should be doing for cost comparisons. Then we're going to actually look at the cost comparison of the licensings for OAC and in OBIA and how the components all fit together. And then we're going to look at the functional differences specifically between Oracle Analytics Cloud and OBIEE, and then again the cost differences in the licensures. Then Jay's going to dive into the security, something that was a bit of a mystery for a while, but we flushed that out finally. And then learn how to transition from OBIA to OAC, the process. And then we're going to understand why to choose OAC, and then you're going to show you the roadmap, and then discuss the challenges that we found in actually, moving or lift and shifting OBIA to the cloud. So ERPA was founded in 1999. Originally, we were founded by 3 PeopleSoft consultants, and so by inception and design, specialized in PeopleSoft. And originally, we focused on PeopleSoft EPM as the obvious or logical data warehouse solution for PeopleSoft customers. But as that product was getting to end of life and it was no longer being developed as a platform and suspended at 9.1. We moved and transitioned and started, focusing on Oracle BI applications 7.964, and did some work with CSX Transportation and some other folks with the Informatica version. For those of you who aren't super familiar with it, and did an implementation at CSX Transportation for HR analytics. Since then, we've transitioned over to Oracle BI applications, and that's really where our focus has been, outside of the core of OBIEE, with the BI applications, HR analytics, financial analytics, procurement and spend, and then also with financial analytics, and then some custom analytics within the OBIA platform. We've had over 1,500 successful implementations for over 500 customers. That includes both PeopleSoft and BI. And to date, we have 500 plus of our own directly employed US-based employees. And we're proud to boast a 95% retention rate, which really translates into an average experience level per individual employee at 10 years. And then 60% of our folks are certified in their area of specialization. We've completed over 250 PeopleSoft upgrades, And to date, I think we're actually up to about 2692 specific PeopleSoft upgrades. And then again with OBIA, we've got 7+ OBIA 11.11 10.2 implementations, which are the ones again specific to ODI. And then we do have back office financial operations that are in Hyderabad, and that's how we get scales of efficiency in our back office versus all our consultants are US based. So when we talk ERP, we always like to talk about our guiding principles. This is what guides us as an organization and as individuals. And when you look at the E in ERPA, it stands for empathy. We try to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and look at it from our customer's viewpoint in terms of how we can satisfy their needs and put the customer first, anticipating that if we take care of you guys, that you'll take care of us. Responsibility. This just really means accountability or doing what you say. And then passion. One of the things that kind of is the glue in the culture of ERPA is that we have passionate individuals, and often when we're interviewing people and joining the organization, people's passion will show through, and we know that they're probably going to be a good fit for the organization. And so passion is definitely one of our central tenets. And agility. Often when you have a large company, it's difficult to navigate, and things take longer time to happen. And we're proud to have grown to almost $100 million company at this point, with 600 directly employed employees with our back office and sales folks, and still have the agility to formulate solutions, come to the table quickly, and solve problems for our customers. So agility is definitely one of our key guiding principles in keeping that in mind, and how we can continue to move and morph as the market changes and technology changes and our clients' needs change. We've got a lot of experience with federal customers. This is probably the least slide that we're going to look at in terms of our logos. One of the key ones to note here is our experience with the United States Army Human Resources Command, where we implemented PeopleSoft EPM with the Campus Solutions Data Warehouse and OBIE on the front end. And it was a little bit of a late comer to the PeopleSoft EPM ranks, but that was in 2013, and a pretty big initiative. When we look at our other experience with higher education, this is probably the biggest place where we play. About 80% of our business is in higher education. This slide could actually be bigger and more dense in terms of the logos and the mascots, but at some point we decided to cut it off because we figured the point we're getting across is clear. We specialize in higher ed, and we have a big dedication to the success of education in the United States. When we look at our city county, this kind of goes hand in hand with our higher education experience. As many of you know that are in higher education, that the folks at the city, county, and state level often commingle and attend Hug Alliance, and so it was a natural progression for us to add on to our portfolio doing work in the public sector with city, state, and local. And then lastly, we can look at some of our commercial experience. So we've got quite a bit of commercial customers out there that we work with. We don't have a separate slide for healthcare, so you'll see Piedmont and Methodist Hospital and some other ones peppered in here. But again, we're pretty broad as far as our experience across the industries. We think that our experience in the commercial sector complements our work in the public sector, and our experience in federal complements that. So it gives us a broad mix, and we get to see a lot of different environments, and we bring all that to the table as experience that we apply to all of our projects, regardless of industry or sector. So here's some of our BI case studies. Bellevue University, again, was one of the places where we were doing PeopleSoft EPM with OBIE and the Campus Solutions 9.0 is the source system. Subsequent to that, we did some consulting with them as they were transitioning their BI ecosystem from PeopleSoft EPM to the cloud. It was an interesting configuration of ODI on-premise with database cloud services, and it was before Oracle Analytics Cloud came out. And basically we helped them with the PeopleSoft implementation, and then we did some consulting with them on the approach and where any place they got stuck with ODI as they transitioned that to the cloud. With CSS Transportations, where we really cut our teeth on OBIA, the ODI version. This was about 4 or 5 months after the product was released. I believe it was May of 2013, and we kicked off this project in August. It was a multi-year project because what we did was took the multiple disparate BI systems at each individual university within the system, 23 in all, plus the chancellor's office, and built one centralized HR reporting system using OBIA HR Analytics as the base for that. Subsequent to that, we took their already centralized financial analytics system that was custom built and then re-implemented that on financial analytics. From there, we moved on and did some work that's not listed here with McMaster University up in Toronto. For them, we did an expert install, and then we built out custom analytics for institutional research and effectiveness. And then you can see some of our other customers. FIU, we've done HR analytics. We did that using our rapid implementation methodology. We did an expert install for SIA, or Student Information Analytics, and then the folks at FIU built out a lot of custom stuff themselves. And we're currently working on implementing financial analytics for them. And then in discussion and on the plate is to do the actual delivered student information analytics. So we're working in partnership with them and Oracle for a lot of their BI initiatives. Some of the other stuff we've done here with Lone Star was, proof of value for financial analytics, and then again, expert installs for South Carolina, which are a little bit on hold right now as they work on their HR and financial implementations to get those wrapped up. So, awards and certifications, or what I prefer to say, awards and affiliations. We're Oracle Platinum partner. To have an Oracle Platinum partnership, you need at least 5 specializations. We've got 6 that are current and still relevant. Again, being a PeopleSoft consultancy, our specializations are in PeopleSoft People Tools, PeopleSoft HCM, PeopleSoft Finance, Oracle Database, and Oracle Database Performance Tuning. And then as suggested, we have a specialization in public sector for PeopleSoft. We've got GSA, again, because we do some of that federal work, and it also helps with the state and local at times. And then, we're CMMI Level 3 appraised. We've got an ISO 27001 and 9001 certifications. What that really translates to for our customers is commitment to process, so that when we approach a project for the first time, especially with newer technology like OBIA was in 2013, we really start with building processes around how we approach everything from the installation on up through training and moving that to production, so that once we get to our second project, we can look back and see where we can improve and then build on that success, so that not only we're guaranteeing that we're going to take success from our first project and move it to the next one, but we're going to continue to improve on that project based on the concept of Kaizen, or continuous improvement. Now, finally, we're going to start looking at some of the business considerations for moving from OBIEE, or OBIA, it should say, apologize, to Oracle Analytics Cloud. The presentation is focused on transitioning Oracle BI applications to the Oracle Cloud. So I'm going to couch this by saying that for OBIA specifically, if you were moving OBIEE to OAC, then you'd just be looking at transitioning all of your OBIE components into OAC. With OBIA, since there is no cloud equivalent for you to transition what you have on premise to the cloud, we're going to be looking at a combination of compute cloud or Oracle's infrastructure as a service to serve as a virtual server where you're going to go and install your on-premise license for OBIA and ODI in the cloud and OBIEE. Then use OBIA as the place to take all your OBIE components. So for the business considerations, it's general for cloud versus on-premise, but specifically the two pieces here we're going to look at is OAC and OBIEE. But it would be relevant for any type of move of applications or BI ecosystems to the cloud. First thing we look at is capital versus operational expense costs. With OAC, it's a subscription model. So it's not necessarily investing a lot in hardware or anything like that. You're just subscribing to it. And then, you don't have to have any particular hardware set up. You're not buying any specific software. And we'll get into some of the licensing considerations in more detail a little bit later. But then you're not actually having to have the IT requirements go hand in hand with that. With OAC, there's no extensive IT resources. You require solid IT resources with expertise both in server administration and the software with OBIE on-premise. So some of that heavy lifting as far as the administration is going to go away with OAC. You still do have to administer the environments and apply patches and manage security. Jay's going to get into that in a little bit. When we look at utility costs, these are some things that people don't always look at. There's two things to go with this. There's the physical space in which you house your servers and hardware, and there's also the heating and cooling, which comes down to the utility cost of those rooms to keep those servers up and running. With OAC, there is no necessarily cost associated with heating and cooling. Obviously, you're going to have to run your laptop and your PCs, but it's minimal cost compared to servers and the amount of energy that's consumed. And again, versus on-site OBIEE, you got a lot of servers. Those things need to be kept at certain temperatures, so there's quite a bit of power consumption. Software investment with OAC, all you're doing is subscribing to software as a service, and then you're using the software. With OBIE on-site, you've got to buy the license, then you're paying your annual maintenance fees, and when we get to the cost comparison, a couple slides from now, you're going to see some significant savings just in that without the comparison of the IT requirements. With the infrastructure investment, there is no infrastructure investment with OAC. With OBIE, obviously, you've got a lot of infrastructure investment as discussed with the hardware setup and maintenance. Deployment time frame. Often, when we're engaging with customers, they have service level agreements with their hosting providers where it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks to spin up a server before we can start the project. Often we find challenges once we get there and the environment hasn't necessarily been set up the way we spec'd it out. So there's further delays, and we've even seen projects be delayed by 8, even 12 weeks just to get the servers ready and then set up properly. With OAC, you don't have that. You subscribe today and we could have a server set up and ready to run tomorrow, and then we can get in and start working and focus on the work versus just getting everything set up. With security and privacy, I'm not going to go into too detail here because Jay's has a section on security. But again, you can do pretty much everything you need in OAC that you can do on OBIEE on-premise. When we look at OBIA, there's some additional considerations, and we're going to make some recommendations around, again, the cloud product configuration that we need to support that transition. Backup and recovery. With the cloud, it's automatic or manual. With on-premise, you've got additional cost for planning. And then what really we often talk about is that you still have to have the discipline and execution. So, a lot of times we make plans and we have, everything set up and all the planning's done, but then the discipline, somebody misses something and that doesn't occur. So a lot of that goes away with the cloud. With BI instances, there's no limit now with OAC in terms of the number of environments and and they're also elastic. Versus on-premise, there's no limit, but they're not necessarily elastic the way they are in the cloud. With Oracle Analytics Cloud today, you get the most advanced data visualization tools available from Oracle, which are considered comparable to Tableau as far as the data visualization. With OBIEE on-premise, you've actually got to license that product separately. Jay's going to get into some of the versioning considerations there and even more incentives around why you'd want to use cloud versus on-premise today, as far as working with the latest and greatest tools. And again, now with OAC, all the components are on par from an application perspective as they would be for OBIE on-premise. And next, we're going to look at some of the licensing considerations we've alluded to up to this point. So Jay and I took a 50 concurrent user kind of scenario and then put together this cost comparison for Oracle BI Foundation Suite as compared to OAC. With Oracle BI Foundation Suite, the list cost of OBIA or OBIEE was $52,000 rounded up, plus annual support cost of $14,000. These are listed prices. For those of you who are involved with buying software, that you're going to get deeper discounts, especially for public sector or higher ed, for buying the licenses from Oracle or from a partner like us. But there's definitely going to be an annual maintenance fee associated with the on-premise products. In addition to that, for those of you who are versed in the lifetime support policy from Oracle, that cost goes up year over year in terms of the maintenance costs, to the effect of 3.5% to 5% every year from the point at which you buy it. Then when you get into the 6th year of extended support, first year of extended support is plus 10%, and then when you get into the 7th and 8th year, it's plus 20%. I've often heard customers negotiate that with Oracle, so I'm just going to say that we're basing the cost off of the listed prices from Oracle. There's a lot of variation, but when we took that and then also factored in that you're not going to have any hardware and infrastructure cost, we feel that the number of personnel you're going to have to maintain your environments in the cloud are going to be less than they are on-premise. Then not only are you saving that $14,000, but you're saving significant more. So you get away from the licensing fee. You can cut down on the number of personnel that you have dedicated to that and reallocate them to other areas where you need them. So again, compared to OAC, with OAC for the same number of users, it's about $4,500 a month, but it comes out to an annual cost of $54,000. So there's $12,000 just in the pure base, published licensing fees. And if you take into consideration the lack of hardware and infrastructure cost, then the fact that you get the latest and greatest data visualization tools without additional licenses, and the actual capabilities with S-Base, and then also some of the cool new things like day by day, and Jay will touch on that. We think there's a pretty compelling reason to go with cloud products. And in IT necessarily, if we're building out analytics and we're doing a lot of people would prefer nowadays to focus on the data science and the data modeling and things of that nature versus being in the infrastructure business. I'm going to turn it over to Jay now for architecture and beyond.
Thank you, Peter. So the OAC architecture consists of those three services. OAC instances, they're not self-containing, as in it's not just one service that you buy and you get all of these features with it. The absolute minimum configuration that you need to have OAC, or even to run OAC, is Oracle Cloud Storage, both block and object, Oracle Database Cloud Instance, which at a minimum you need it for the RCU schemas, if you guys are familiar with that in OBIEE, and then the OAC instance, which includes its own server that you might have access to depending on which version you choose. All of these services need to be set up individually. There's no package solution per se. Like I said, you can't just go in and create an OAC instance complete. You have to create these services individually, which technically adds flexibility to what's available with OAC. You can build your database as big as you need. You can build as much space as you need, and the OCPUs that you need for OAC as you want. OAC security, like Peter mentioned, we had an issue with trying to figure out how a lot of enterprise customers use it within their own implementations. We did figure that out. I'll cover that after I talk about some of these basics. So OAC has role-based access, just like your on-premise OBIEE does, robust security, finally tuned to every organization's and department's needs. So pretty much you can do everything that you need to do, that you do on-premise OBIEE within OAC. It's built on Oracle's IDM platform. Every user will register for access to the Oracle Public Cloud first, and then based on what access they need, the administrator will provide access to them, unless you go to the AD route. Identity management is part of the common services layer, and it's secured by Oracle Public Cloud. Consists of LDAP-based identity store, just like your WebLogic LDAP on-premise, and you can set up SSO. Row-level security, of course, you can set up using application roles. Now, the piece that I mentioned earlier about AD, to use AD in the cloud, you need an extra license for Oracle Identity Cloud Service. That is a bridge software that they deliver that you would install on your on-premise AD box. And the bridge basically communicates from the cloud to on-premise for authentication purposes. Implementation and roadmap. So we always recommend starting with a hybrid model, moving only the web catalog and the RPD to OAC and keeping everything else, let's say your data warehouse, your ODI, your ETLs, so on and so forth on premise. It helps you test out the tool, the power of the tool on the front end as far as OAC is concerned. So that's our best approach to start with a hybrid model. You can use remote data connector or VPN as a service to connect to the OBIA data warehouse on premise. Those are both. Remote data connector is a very small software. I'll cover the steps for that in the next slide. VPN as a service is just like it sounds. You VPN to your on-premise database from the server of OAC in the cloud. You start with the creation of key users within the OAC platform. And then once testing is complete and key stakeholders agree, you do a complete migration of OBIA to the cloud. Remote data connector. So as I mentioned, remote data connector is the application that you use to connect your cloud OAC to your on-premise data source or data warehouse, whichever the case may be. The steps for remote data connector are what you see here. You get your OAC environment, you provision that environment, you get the info from that environment and the public key for that environment. Those familiar with SSH would know what public and private keys are. There's environments. Get on-premise database settings. The last we did this presentation, it was Oracle only, but I believe now it's not just for Oracle. It connects to any relational data source on-premise. Install the RDC application on the WebLogic instance on-premise. Create the WebLogic data source pointing to the on-premise database you want to use from OAC. And then you use the RPD to load Java data sources. Update the connection pool in the RPD to connect to your data source that you created within WebLogic, and then save and deploy that particular RPD to OAC in the cloud. Now, that piece in particular, it's important to note, versions of OAC, the only version that will enterprise edition of OAC. you can't deploy on-premise RPDs to the standard edition of OAC.
Jay, can
That's
you repeat
important.
that? Because it was a little bit blurry for me. I don't know if anybody else had a problem hearing it.
Which part?
What you just stated.
So it's important for you to understand that the saving and the deploying of the on-premise RPD to OAC, you can only do that with enterprise license for OAC. OAC have a standard edition license also, which is a shorter or pieces, and this is one that you don't get with the standard edition. So you need to have enterprise edition OAC to be able to deploy your on-premise RPD to the cloud.
And we can share with everybody the breakdown of the different components of OAC. We've been exposed to it for over a year, almost over a year now. So kind of we've become familiar with it and we take for granted. We've got a breakdown of the cost structure and the different components that we can share with you individually if you just request it. Thanks, Jay.
Okay, so the different service licenses required for a full migration of OBIA to the cloud. Now, once you test out the cloud using OAC, we recommend you do a full migration because you want to get rid of those infrastructure costs that Peter mentioned earlier. So these are the service licenses that are required for a full migration. You need the Oracle Cloud Storage, both object and block storage. You need compute cloud service, which, as Peter mentioned earlier, is basically a VM in the cloud. Depending on the sizing that you need, you create a compute cloud service. Then you have the database cloud service and the database backup service. Those are two different services, but you can build those together. When you build the Oracle DBCS, you can also add a backup service to it based on the size that you need it to be. And then you need your Oracle Analytics Cloud service, of course. It's important that all services be created on the same data center. That's one mistake makes. So that if you are aware of that piece, there is a drop-down that allows you to change the data center if you like to. So it's important for better performance. And the thing that we did showed us that. So this is the high-level process of a complete transition from OBIA on-premise to the cloud. So you start with the creation of all the cloud service instances, like we mentioned in the previous slide. You install OBIA 11.1.10.2 on the compute cloud service. You configure OBIA, which includes the functional configuration of OBIA also. Now, if you already have a project on-premise, you would be able to export the configuration from on-premise and import that into the cloud version of OBIA. And then you lift and shift artifacts to OAC, which are basically your web catalog, your RPD, security, so on and so forth. So here are some of the detailed steps. I added screenshots for when I did the whole migration from on-premise to the cloud. Some of these screenshots might be old now. If they are, don't blame me for that. But this is the first step would be to create your Oracle storage container. And that's what I'm doing in this screenshot. You create an instance of Oracle storage.
And so this isn't old, guys. This just changes so often and frequently that Jay's, making sure that you guys realize that even though this might have been done a month ago, that these things change maybe sometimes when we go back in to look at it again.
Right. Yeah, in the past, it was changing almost weekly, I felt. So now it may have changed since then. We're not doing this on an everyday basis. So once you create your storage service, this is what it's going to look like. Once you have the storage service created, you're going to create your public and private keys. You can use PuTTY or SSH keygen, like I mentioned here. I have a Mac, so my screen is going to look a little bit different from from Windows users, but if you're familiar with creating SSH keys, that's the next step that you have to do. Once that's complete, once you've created your public and private keys, you're going to upload the key to every creation of the service. Within the creation of the service, there's a place where you upload the key that you're going to use so that you can access the VM that you're going to create from your laptop or from a jump box or something like that. So this is, you're seeing the compute cloud service instance that I created. I created OCPUs, which is, I guess, the minimum requirement that you would need for an OBIA install, and a minimum of 220 gigs of space that I created. Once you're done with that, you can create bootable and software storage and then attach that to the server. So this would be your block storage. So the one that we created in the past was the object storage. This would be your block storage. And then you use the SSH keys to log into this VM on PuTTY or any other SSH tool and mount this storage drive that we just created in this slide. So you see the 200 GB that I created. I'm just mounting that here. Once it's mounted, you have enough space on there. Your compute instance is now ready for software download and installation. Once you have that, we could go to the database as a service instance. You need a minimum, so Oracle recommends a minimum of 100 GB usable database storage, the highlighted part that you see on the screenshot. In my testing, we found that it was at least 100 GB. But again, this is just the minimum. So when you create for an enterprise, this will be much larger. And then you create your Oracle Analytics Cloud service. And then, like I mentioned in the past, you have to choose the enterprise edition of the software. You can't use the standard edition to do this migration of OBIA from on-premise to the cloud. And that's the section that basically lets you do the upload, the lift and shift of the RPD from on-premise to the cloud, the enterprise data model. So you need to make sure that that box is definitely checked. And you see the IDCS up above that's been enabled. Okay, so this was something that I ran into. So let me go back to my creation of the storage container. So that hyphen that you saw, the OBIA dash storage, that caused issues, and Oracle gave us a solution for that. This was the particular doc ID that Oracle has out there that explains that issue. I just added it on here, so in case someone has a similar issue while creating the services, they can always refer to this. It's a very common, easy mistake to make. You wouldn't think a hyphen in the name of a storage container could change things that much, but the creation of the service failed on me at least 3 times. So once all the services are created, you start with the installation of OBIA on Compute Cloud. Now the installation of OBIA on Compute Cloud, because Compute is very similar to OBIA installation on premise. If you have someone who does that, hold them responsible for this as well. You just download the executables using Firefox or wget, or using your public-private keys, you can actually upload the executables cloud name as well. You install JDK, WebLogic Server, OBIEE, OBI, and then you can configure OBIA. Of course, this is just the highlights of the install. The install is much more complicated. Once you have OBIA installed, that's when you lift and shift the BI apps artifacts to OAC. So you start with roles and presentation catalogs. Oracle delivers a bar file to upload, which is basically the base catalog and RPD that you would get with OBIA. You don't have to use that. If you have a custom environment on premise, you can always create your own bar file and upload that to the cloud. And then you lift and shift the RPD to Oracle Analytics Cloud after updating the connection pools, like I mentioned in the RDP section, the Remote Data Connector section, RDC. And this is what the final product looks like. So as you can see, this is the OBIA dashboard. This is the Spend Analyzer dashboard on OAC. And using that same information in DV, we created this just test visualization within the DV part of OAC that you also get with OAC, but you don't get with on-premise OBIA. And this is very interactive, of course. This is not live, but I would definitely do that if you're going to move to the cloud as well.
So Grant, if it wasn't obvious that this advanced visualization tool comes with OAC versus in the past with, if you're OBIE customer on premise and you wanted to use DV, you had to license it separately on premise.
Right, and that brings me back to the point that Peter mentioned earlier. It may be version 1 or 2. The cloud version of DV is version 4. Version that you get on data visualization desktop. Those who are familiar with the visualization desktop is the same version that you get on OAC, but the on-premise OBIE installed version of VA or DV that you get is at least 2 versions behind, possibly more by now.
So in other words, to paraphrase what Jay's saying, is we're starting to see a gap or a disparity between the product development in the cloud versus the on-premise stuff.
Correct. Okay, so the whole process that we did, and we're doing POCs for other customers as well. The process of service creation, it's not very intuitive. Like I mentioned, the screens have changed on me at least 3 times in the past and might still be changing because Oracle is still working on the UI piece of creation of the services. They are actually now working on a one-pager for at least 2 or 3 of those services, let's say OAC at least, to build OAC together, all 3 services. But that's still, the process as of right now is not very intuitive. The total time frame for creation of all the service is 4 hours. I knocked out the whole migration, of course, with a lot of different things that I had to change. The whole migration took me about 2 days tops. Once the compute instance is created, deleting is not an option using the UI. Again, as of today, only ways to delete are using command line interface or REST API, and those are both delivered. When you get anything cloud, you have a command line interface that's delivered as well as a REST API with, of course, a lot of different endpoints, a lot of different processes that you can do using the API. Security can be a veritable maze. And this piece, I'm not talking about security as far as authentication and authorization within OAC is concerned. I'm just talking about creation of the services, understanding of security rules, protocols, APLs, lists, IP lists, all of that put together is very key. And again, when we did this, we were able to understand all of that over a few tries. So if you need details on that process, we can always provide that. Comparing costs, there's a definite price reduction going to the cloud. And depending on what you're paying right now, that may not be gigantic to start, but there is a definite price reduction, and the difference in the functionality is huge. And like we talked about, future product development for OBIE on-premise is questionable. As far as features that are available in the cloud today goes, you cannot compare that to OBIE on premise at all. One important piece that we didn't mention was the day-by-day app. I think Peter mentioned that earlier. When you license OAC, you are able to use the Oracle day-by-day app. You can test it out. It's available on both Google and on iOS. It's very cool, and it has natural language processing built in, so you can speak to the app and get data if you have the data built into OAC. So that's very cool. That's not available for anything on premise per se.
Yeah, Jay, we're going to be doing a proof of concept on that with one of our good customers in California here coming up in the next month or so. So that's definitely something we're interested in exploring. One thing I want to add, Jay, is around the licensing. Anybody who has OBIE on-premise, Oracle's giving you credits for those on-premise licenses to transition to OAC. We had some specific discussions yesterday with Oracle myself that I haven't even shared with Jay yet, that since OBIA, you're going to be keeping your on-premise license for OBIEE because it's required, well, OBIA, because they're doing the install, even though it's going to be on the Oracle Compute Cloud for OBIA, requires the OBIA, ODI, and OBIE be installed for that. So you're still going to need to keep your on-premise license for OBIA, including OBIE and ODI, in that configuration. Then Oracle's going to give you like a 95% discount for the OAC license. So it does mean there's going to be a little bit of a cost there, but this is specific to OBIA. So anybody out there that actually has OBIA and wants to take this transition, was a key question that Jay and I had, and that's the answer I got as of yesterday. They're going to make up for the difference if you continue to pay for that OBIE license, which is required with OBIA, and then give you this really super steep discount with OAC. We're only paying 5% of the cost. For anybody who's just looking to transition OBIEE to OAC, then you would be looking at swapping out those licenses and getting credits for what you paid for the on-premise product. So I just wanted to add that, Jay.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, I think it's time for questions, and please ask us anything that you would like to ask at this point. We've done a lot of work over the past few months on this migration and the cloud platform in general.
There's a lot of research.
Please place them. So as far as questions go, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say we may need to unmute everybody. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But you guys have the ability to type questions in for us, and then we'll see them down at the bottom of our screen. I've got the Q&A open, and I don't see any specific questions coming in yet. But if we can make sure everybody's unmuted.
Question section.
Yes, I don't see any questions that have come in.
Right.
But again, Jay and I had copious questions to do with security as we went down this path, and we've kind of flushed all those out at this point and have some recommendations. But take a minute, think about it, and then again, please let us know any questions you have. If you're shy and you want to ask those questions directly to us, we'll provide you our contact information here at the end. And I think from the names I saw, most people already know us. Chat, okay. Okay. Thank you. This presentation looks to provide relevant information to anyone looking to transition. Okay. Okay, we'll just give it another minute. Again, we've allocated till 1 o'clock Eastern time. So we have a few more minutes.
Okay, I see a question.
Is there one in the
any roadmap for OBIA 12C? Well, we're not aware of anything as far as OBIA 12C is concerned. Of course, Oracle keeps that very tight-lipped. But from what we've discussed with Oracle representatives, we don't think that there's going to be an OBIA 12C, but that's, of course, a big assumption on our end based on discussions with a few people at Oracle. Peter, do you know anything different?
No, but certainly I'll take that away as a question that I'll be asking our counterparts at Oracle. But there has been no mention of it, and it really hasn't been something that we've been asking about. We're seeing most of the focus for new products going to the cloud, which is one of the major takeaways for you guys.
Right.
And we have to look back at what happened with the OBIA Informatica version, where once Oracle moved forward, then they never really looked back.
Right.
Thanks, Steve, for the question. Anybody else? Again, we've got a few minutes, so we're willing to hang on as long as you guys you need to ask the questions. I'm surprised we're not getting questions around security, because just honestly, folks, that was something that took us months to get to the real answers.
Yeah, we had to have talked to at least 4 or 5 different technical folks in and outside of Oracle, and then just fiddling with it one fine day, I found it.
Yeah, and then even with the piece about the licensing and how it would work with the OBIEE being required for the install of OBIA, and then having to pay for OAC as a separate license. Literally just got that answered yesterday, and I think it's going to vary per customer. Can you move the slide to my contact information, Jay? That way they can see that in case anybody that wants to not hang on and drop off. Thank you guys for attending. And then here's our contact information. It's PKOUTRO@ERPAgroup.com. You can also call me directly on my cell phone at 727-421-3170. And I'll make a couple statements. I'm at Oregon State University this week attending the Higher Education Data Warehouse Conference, and one of the things that occurred to me is a lot of the information that we're presenting can be found at these type of conferences, and maybe not as in detail, or actually haven't done the hands-on work to flush out a lot of the stuff that we're presenting to you today. But we certainly encourage you guys to look into a couple things. One is going to be the Oracle Developer Tools User Group K-Scope Conference. It's going to be in Orlando this year. We think it's one of the premier technology conferences for sharing and dissemination of information around Oracle products. It's one of the things Jay and I are heavily involved in. And also with the Analytics and Data Summit. Jay and I are both involved with that. I'm on the board of directors. Jay doesn't know it, but he's going to be on the board of directors soon. And there's a lot of information there that gets disseminated around, and it's a nicer, smaller conference where you can get to know everybody, and that's held at Oracle headquarters in March, and it used to be in January and called BIWA, but now we've relabeled the Analytics and Data Summit. So certainly think that those are some of the premier events that folks could get a lot of information out of. And then also, if we know you guys have a lot of expertise, and certainly encourage you to submit your own presentations, and that's something that we'd be willing to discuss with you, and how you get started if you guys are interested in any of that. Well, again, I'll just ask for any questions anybody has. I don't know if anybody's muted or unmuted Jay, unfortunately. But what I'll say is that Jay and I are always willing to share what we know. We think it's really important to get this information out and help people. So, it's always willing to give you a free audience to discuss our thoughts around, the future of Oracle technology and approaches and roadmaps. And we'll be happy to spend that time with you and share the information we have. And that could be either us sharing it with you or getting you connected to other customers to talk about what they've done, or get you connected to the right people at Oracle. So please don't hesitate to ask or follow up with us, and we assure you we'll be responsive and answer anything you want. Well, I'm going to put one more poll question out there as we wait and see if anybody has any additional questions for us. And then we'll go ahead and close the call up for today. So one thing as you ponder the question here about how do you think you're going to approach your on-premise Oracle BX, and one of the things that's a differentiator about us as a company is that, often our customers come to us and they say, okay, we want you to do the whole project. Other customers come to us and they say, well, we want to do some of the projects so we can learn in the process. And then other people say, we want to do it completely on our own. We don't want to do it completely on our own, but we want to do it in a hybrid model where we build a project team that's composed of the manpower and woman power that we have that we can apply to it in combination of yours and have a project team. So we're flexible. We pride ourselves on the agility piece of ERPA we mentioned. And so we're happy to either do projects as managed projects or do them in some type of hybrid model. And we can even help assess your staff and their expertise in relation to something you're trying to accomplish. And then, just supplement your team with the right people so that we can get you through, whether that's just a project manager or a solution architect like Jay, or, maybe just the developers. So keep that in mind. There's a bunch of different ways to configure your projects. And we like to accommodate those all, and I'm not sure if everybody is as flexible as we are. Well, Jay, again, here's my contact information. If you can go back to the thank you slide, I'm going to go ahead and just thank everybody for your time and attendance. We know you guys and girls are busy. So your time's always greatly appreciated when you're willing to come and share with us and listen to what we have to say. And one more time, we're always happy to give you a free audience to discuss our thoughts and views on technology specific to Oracle and data warehousing. And then also add that our particular area of expertise is PeopleSoft applications. So we feel we have a leg up in people that have PeopleSoft as their source system. But we're not limited to that. When it comes to Oracle BI Business Intelligence, we're willing to use source systems in higher ed. We've built student success source systems for BI and Banner. And then we've also built at CSX Transportation, all the BI app stuff on the back end was Oracle eBusiness HR. So we're independent as far as the source systems, but we do have additional strengths when it comes to Oracle as the source system for your data warehouse and your BI ecosystem. So with that, we're going to conclude the call and thank everybody for attending and wish you a great day.
Thank you all.